Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to a beautiful game from the Hans Niemann against the world competition that we have followed now in the last couple of weeks. In this competition, Hans Niemann is trying to play against every grandmaster that wants to play against Hans Niemann. Among them, Anish Giri also agreed to play a super match against Hans Niemann, in which they played Blitz, Rapid and Classical Time format chess. And we have to mention Hans Niemann outplayed Anish Giri with a great result in the Blitz section. He really destroyed Anish Giri in the classical time format event. He outplayed also Anish Giri, and only in the rapid section Anish made a draw against Hans Niemann, which was a great result for Hans. So he's getting stronger and stronger for sure. And I've decided to show you now really what was, in my opinion, one of the most incredible games, really a shocking game, really one of the most shocking games of this year, with a perfect opening play by Hans, but then also with the I would say really complicated endgame, so really crazy stuff. This was from a classical time format section, in my opinion, very great gameplay by Anish Giri and Hans Niemann. So with the white pieces, Anish opened with move d4. Hans' response was knight to f6, c4, e6, knight to f3, d5, and now Anish goes into the Catalan opening with the move g3, bishop to b4, pretty standard stuff. Then retreating. This bishop is of course also misplaced, searches for better opportunities, maybe to the score c3 or maybe to the score f4 or g5. We have bishop to g2, castling, knight from b to d7, and now after queen to c2, now comes the standard defensive idea by black of the Catalan opening with the move c6, and then going into similar ideas like in the queens in the defense with b6, bishop to a6, putting more pressure against his pawn on c4, forcing basically a reaction by white, where white of course doesn't want to take the pawn on d5 because then the position is too splashed, the position is too easy to play. Then basically white is waiting black to take d takes c4, and then this Catalan bishop is becoming of course the best minor piece on the board. So here rook to d1, this is always also standard idea by white. If something clears on the d file, then the queen could be endangered. Hans goes with b6 with the standard idea, bishop to c3, a rare sideline I would say by Anish, where basically many times you're trying to play bishop to f4 or bishop to g5, but then it leads into this sidelines, and you're trying a knight to f6. But okay, bishop to c3 allows here Hans to play knight to e4 immediately, hitting the bishop, which is already a theoretical novelty, but I'm not sure why no one didn't play in top GM level already this move. In my opinion, this move makes perfect sense. You get an extra tempo against this bishop because white still doesn't want to lose the bishop pair in an early stage of the game, so that's why Anish retreats to e1, bishop to b7, knight to d2, and now Hans goes into a stonewall formation like in the Dutch stonewall, but it's an improved Dutch stonewall with his move f5. He's simply relying on his powerful knight on e4, forces now also a certain positional play now in the later stage of this opening. So it's not so easy to play against this knight. You don't want to tolerate, of course, such a powerful knight on e4 by black, and even if you try some defensive ideas like f3 to somehow kick it away, then you weaken always your dark square. So complicated game to play. So Anish, I think, in this particular position found the best solution. He played a very aggressive queenside flank attack with the move b4, and he's trying now to play also c5 to lock out simply here the queenside. Great move by Anish. You cannot take, of course, here because you're running into this tactical sequence. You can get, of course, the bishop, but then with knight to g5, the e6 is weak, and you have to retreat with the bishop, and then white of course wins the exchange with the fork against the rook and the queen. So that's why bishop after b4, bishop to f6 by Hans, and now Anish continues the pressure with the move a4. Great play by Anish so far. Queen to e7, and now Anish makes already a tiny little inaccuracy, which gives here black a slight edge. A better choice was to play here a5, and then after something like b5, then you play a6, and now after bishop to c8 you can play c5, and you can lock out now here the whole queen side. You can paralyze, really neutralize the whole queen set. But then after something like knight to d2, bishop to d2, black has also counterplay with e5. D takes e5, knight to e5, I would say equal position. But after knight to b3, what Anish allowed here is Hans to play now the move d takes c4. And it becomes complicated because now Hans breaks the position immediately with the move c5, and he has a great grip around the square, and also the rook is now endangered on a1. So that's the issues. Hans noticed now this tactical sequence, and here black is already slightly better. B takes c5, bishop to d5, great intermezzo here by Hans, hitting the queen, and now he takes. Simply b takes c5. Anish gets out of this potential mess on the star squares. We have now the move c4, and Hans goes for the attack. Has now a very, very unpleasant pawn to handle. Great play so far by Hans. He is attacking the piece. There are not so even good squares here for Anish. Anish is trying again to battle against this knight on e4, which is really unpleasant now to the whole game. But now great move again by Hans. Rook from f to c8 protects now the pawn and supports it, of course, further. Now the issues c3 is coming also for sure. Knight to f1 by Anish. You see many moves he lost with the same piece. This knight to b3, knight to d2, knight to f1. He played simply too many times in the opening stage with the same piece. Now knight to d6 by Hans, rook to c1, and now a great move by Hans, knight to b6. Hans noticed that actually Anish Giri lost the battle on lie squares. He lost now the e4 square, and now he's trying also to cement then after bishop to e4 the knight on d5, and then both of these knights could support this very good pawn here on the c file. And from this point on, I think the game becomes easy to play here for Hans Niemann. So what should you do? The best choice is here to play bishop to b4 for Anish, but then after bishop to e4, queen to a2, knight to d5, again this same pattern would happen. But after knight to b6, Anish played even the worst idea here. He played a5, which gives here Hans again this beautiful intermezzo, this intermediate attack against the queen. He cements now the knight on d5, and now you see all of the pieces by black are centralized, and that's exactly a great example how you should play chess in the middle game stage. Centralize your pieces, put them on the most active squares, and look at this. I'm not sure where we could even find a better square here for all of these minor pieces for Hans Niemann. So that's why the evaluation is almost +2 here in black's favor. Of course, still complicated game to play, but here I would say this game becomes really one-way ticket in black's favor. Knight to d2, hitting now the bishop, but now Hans has this progressive pawn. Knight takes e4, and now I see also the knight is protecting this other knight, also this powerful pawn. Rook to a1, rook to c1. We have rook to a1, rook to b8 here, rook from d to c1, and now queen to c7. We have e3, and now rook to b2. Hans is getting through. The queen is endangered, queen drops back, and now c2. Why not? Simply pushing the pawn further. Also, queen to c6 is an option here, which could, I think, simplify the game enough here for black. Then after something like this, we can still push the pawn. I think a simplification idea for black would be also perfectly fine. But okay, c2, we have queen to a3, queen to b8, queen to d3, rook to b3. Now we have king to f7, protecting now this pawn, and now bishop to f1. Here Anish realizes that there's simply no good way to battle on this diagonal against these two powerful knights. He's trying to search new opportunities with the light square bishop. Rook to b2, queen to d3, rook to c7. We have knight to d2. Finally, Anish competes in the right way against this knight on e4. But you saw Hans Niemann stayed really for a long time with this really great knight on e4. Now after bishop to d2, we have rook to b3. Is again Hans Niemann is keeping the attacking flow. Again, always Anish Giri has something to worry about. We have queen to e2, rook to b1. You cannot take, of course, because then this b1 is supported, so we have a new promotion. Here, e4 by Anish. This is not a good move. Allows here, of course, certain ideas for black. A better choice is to play queen to e1. Then after something like this, still black is better, I would say. Complicated, but e4 really unnecessary here for Anish. After e4, Hans is saying, okay, I will take. After queen to e4, now Hans plays a beautiful idea, queen to b2. After rook from a to b1, we have queen queen takes, we have c takes b1, a new promotion, and now Hans realized, of course, that the bishop is loose on d2, and here I would say black is a completely winning endgame. But this is not over. Of course, even top GMs make mistakes. Hans is up a whole piece, but Anish is battling here in the proper way. Plays now, first of all, the correct bishop to h3. Hints now the pawn on e6, rook to e7. Anish plays again a good move. The only moves I would say Anish is playing here in order somehow to stay in the game. Rook takes e6, and now queen to d5 with the threat of rook to b7. And of course, the queen is very dangerous here. So that's why queen to e2, connecting now the queen to the rook. We have now queen to f5. We have rook to e7, and now queen takes h7. Okay. Anish lost the piece, but got a couple of pawns. Very unpleasant also now to position handle for Hans Niemann, because his king is exposed. White's king is, of course, much more secure. Very tricky position now to play for both sides. Queen to f3. Queen to c2, queen to d5, and now a6. Here Anish is also trying some ideas to play, not immediately, but maybe later, rook to b7. We have queen takes d4, at least one pawn for Hans, h4, and now queen to d5. King to h2, we have g6, and now Anish goes with an attack against the queen. Hans has to drop back, and now queen to a2 comes with a check, but also with a protection against this pawn. We have king to g7, rook to d8. You see, Anish is finding at least some ideas to complicate the position somehow. He has to do something. He's down a piece. If the game goes into fully endgame stage, then of course black is winning. We have rook to f7, we have rook to h8, queen to d7, and now Anish is again trying this idea with rook to b7. Again, Hans is not allowing that, and now f4. Maybe again an unnecessary move, maybe a little bit here for Anish, exposing your king further. Rook to b4 is pretty solid also here. You don't have to rush here. At least with this setup, you have a good structure in front of the king. f4 weakens, of course, your king further. Very unnecessary move here for Anish. Rook to e7, we have rook to g8, king to h7. We have now rook to f8, and now bishop to g7. There are always better moves maybe for both sides, but I think we can agree here that if black plays now the correct endgame here, black should be winning. But this is a very different kind of chess. Many mistakes will still happen in the game. After bishop to g7, rook to d8, queen to f3, we have queen to g8. Nothing spectacular, because no good checks are possible here for white. The bishop on g7 is controlling, of course, the h8 square. But now after move queen to d5, now comes very bad play now by Hans Niemann. So far Hans played, I think, a perfect game, but now he started to play really bad moves. The first bad move that he played is now the move queen to f2, and this was a necessary move now finally by Hans, because a better choice is here to play rook to e2. And actually what you're trying to do with this move, you're trying to get the king somehow towards the center, and there is a good way to do that. You deliver a couple of checks here, you threaten the move queen to h3, because even if one check happens, you still have this resource, and there's simply no good check that's possible. So there's simply no perpetual something that's possible for white. Now when you play rook to h1 and you deliver now check, finally you got the king out of the house. You know, the king was in the house here, at least it was protected somehow. Now when it's there, you can deliver further checks with rook to f1, and now I think game over here for white. But after queen to f2 instead of rook to e2, Hans is giving here Anish Giri some chances. Anish is saying, okay, thank you, queen to h3, but now you see there's simply no good check anymore that's possible. You could try queen to e2, but you see Anish is getting again on the same square. Bishop to f6, again, Hans is not playing the optimal moves here. Bishop to f6 is again a bad move. A better choice is, okay, maybe I didn't realize this possibility to get the king out of the house, but here the best choice is actually to play queen to e6, forcing now the reaction here. And now after a couple of more moves, you can grab this pawn, and now finally you have created yourself a passer. You can compete with the bishop and the pawn against these three pawns. I would dare to say here, really game over for white. So Hans missed his chances with the move bishop to f6. Still if black plays now the game correctly, probably should be winning for black. But now Anish got some chances. He's attacking now the position further. We have queen to d3. We have a queen to e1. We have, again, Anish is trying to simplify the game by trading off the queens because he didn't lose the pawn on a6, which Hans could have taken previously. We have queen to e4, queen to d5. We have queen to e2. And now, again, Anish is trying to trade off the queens. Now Hans goes with queen to d1, which was, as I said, maybe unnecessary. You have to complicate things, you have to spice up the game. But after rook to d1, okay, still black is better. Bishop to c3, we have king to g4, we have bishop to b4, and now Anish is going for the trades of pawns. After g takes h5 and king to h5, what Anish gained here is now an endgame where he has two connected passers, and again, very unpleasant. If you don't play the game correctly, you cannot win the game. So that's why Hans has to play now the perfect moves in order to stay in the game. We have king to f6, king to g4, rook to e6. Here Anish is trying to battle. Hans is also trying to centralize the king here. And now after bishop to d4, rook to a2, you see Hans is getting closer and closer with his king towards the center. We have king to h4, rook to e8, and now after g4, now comes the critical moment again here for black, for Hans Niemann. Again, he played a mistake which actually equalizes the game here for both sides. Hans played now the move bishop to e3. A better choice is to play rook to h8. That's now the must move here, because after king to g3, you have this move king to e4. That's good for you because there are simply no good checks by the rook that are possible. Rook to a4 is of course not a check. If you play something like this, then we still can cover, and now this pawn is hanging. You have to expose yourself further with a potential move, I don't know, something like f5, but then it's not such a powerful pawn structure. But after move bishop to e3, what Anish has now is now king to g3, and actually it's now a drawish position if again white and black play the game correct, because after rook to f8, Hans had a different idea in mind, but actually this is defendable. Now Anish has this defensive resource. Even if you go here with king to e4 instead of this move rook to f8 that Hans played, then you're vulnerable to these checks. That's the issue, this checks from the side of the board. So after king to g3, Hans tried to go for the f4 pawn, but now Anish protects it. We have bishop to d4, king to f3, and you see now Anish has to just hold this position like this, and actually it's a thematic draw. Really crazy stuff. Hans Niemann in one particular moment of the game had a +7 evaluation in black's favor, and he messed up the whole game. But okay, still nothing is over. Rook to b8 here, g5. We have rook to b1, rook to a5. A couple of checks here by Anish, and Anish is starting now to push the pawns here also on the g file. We have rook to g1, king to f5, hiding behind the pawns, not allowing some further checks. We have bishop to d4. Again, Anish is going with the rook behind, and now finally Hans is trying to go for the a6 pawn, the pawn that he could have taken much earlier in the game. But okay, they're still battling. King to e4, bishop to f6, f5, rook to e1, king to f4, rook to c1. We have now this pawn, and after rook to c4, now comes again a critical moment of the game. My question maybe for you is, if you want to study some endgames, should white cover now with this in this position with the rook, or should he not? So my question for you is, think about this position. Should white go for trades of rooks here with the move rook to e4? What do you think about this endgame? Okay. Here, white should not go with rook to e4. If he plays that, then it's completely losing. A better choice here for white is to play a calm game, king to f3, hold your rook somehow here, get this king out of the game, and you can hold a draw. But after rook to e4 that Anish played, Hans accepts now the challenge, and actually, although this is a battle of bishop versus two pawns, actually this is winning because of this passer on the a file. And the good part for black is that it's not one of those wrong bishops positions in which you cannot promote the pawn. If black would have maybe a light square bishop here, then in a potential endgame this would be a completely drawish position, because white can even give up all of these pawns. Imagine now this bishop on a light square. White can hold this position by just cornering the king there, and black cannot promote the pawn for sure. But it's a different story now. This bishop is supporting actually the square, and finally Hans has a completely winning endgame. Hans goes now towards his pawns, is of course playing a couple of Zugzwang moves, forces now some reactions here. Bishop to h8, king to g5. Here Hans goes fine with king to f6. We have now this idea. Hans is going again with the bishop behind. Force is always a reaction, but now when he reached this position, after a couple more moves, now the bishop is controlling the g5 square. Anish is forced now to play king to g4. Now Hans has this opportunity, gets the king closer, and after king to g5, in this particular position, Anish Giri resigned. Of course, you have to step back now finally from the defense. This pawn will be taken, and as I said, this bishop can protect the pawn on a7. White will also pick up, black will also pick up this pawn, and then when the king comes closer, probably this pawn will fall, and then with the support of the bishop, this pawn can be promoted. So unbelievable game, really shocking endgame here by Anish Giri and Hans Niemann. But Hans played really an awesome opening against the Catalan. I've noticed a really couple of good games by Hans Niemann against this Catalan setup. He's playing basically the same lines, so you can prepare yourself in a good way against Hans. If you play, he will probably play against this Catalan opening again this method with you see, with this bishop to b4 and then bishop to e7, but he knows his stuff in this openings. He's very familiar with the concepts. Great game here, I would say, again by Hans Niemann, but he has to improve, I think, a little bit his endgames. He almost messed this up, completely winning endgame here, but he almost got only a draw. Okay, as I mentioned, Hans Niemann won his match against Anish Giri. We know how strong Anish Giri is. He was part of the 2800 rating club and destroyed him really in the blitz and classical section. Only in the rapid section they played 3 points for both sides, but very incredible performance again by Hans Moke Niemann. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Catalan opening, but also I think interesting ideas of the end game stage, because many of us, I would say, would go for the trades of rooks and hope that this two pawns versus bishop is holding, but actually it's not. So okay, if you want to see some other games that we have covered here on my YouTube channel, check out our coverage. Here are some games that we have analyzed before, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.